Hi, my name's Brody Escalera, and I'm going to be talking to you today about the datatable plugin for jQuery. First, I'm going to talk about the dependencies, and we're going to take a look at the HTML markup and what you need to do to hook into the datatable plugin. Then I'll show you an example of a rendered table using the HTML markup. And then we're going to get into the datatable function itself and break down the different keys and what they do and how they modify your table. We'll then show you an example of a modified table using an array versus using the HTML markup. Dependencies. So your required JavaScript are jQuery, and then the datatable.js or the datatable min.js. I have both shown here, but both are not required. It's either or. You're also going to need a main.js or a personal.js so you can call the datatable function. And all of the required files can be found here, http://holt59@github.io datatable. They also have a lot of good information that goes into the different options that you can call and use. Optional CSS I'm using in this is Bootstrap, and that's just to make the table look a little pretty. Okay, so let's take a look at the HTML markup. Here you can see it's very simple, nothing special for this demonstration. We've got the Bootstrap link here for the CSS, which is going to style our table. And then down here in the body is where we're actually have some tags that are important. Up top here, you've got this div tag with the class of paging. That's going to contain the pagination for the table itself. So I've got one on top above the table and after the table thread ends at, or the table ends at the very bottom down here. I gave the table an ID of main table, which we're going to be calling using jQuery. And then there's a couple things that you should know here. You need to have the table head and the table body for this to function properly, because you're going to be calling on different keys that are going to interact with these th elements as well as the td elements. At the very bottom of the file, I've got those JavaScript files linked in here. Okay, so let's take a look at the example. So here you can see you can select the different THs. So year, model, and make. We'll go into why some are selectable and some aren't. You can also search, and you can also search by selection. The pagination will give you different pages, and you can customize how many pages and how many items in the table are shown at each time. Okay, the datatable function breakdown. In our main.js file, we're going to call the datatable function. What I've done here is I've created a variable in it, and then I call the function in it. Basically, I'm doing that here just because this is part of my final project that I'm using for the week. So I just wrapped it up in this little jQuery function, and we'll go ahead and get into it now. So we're calling that main table using standard jQuery, and then we're using this .datatable function. Inside that function, we've got a few keys that we can identify. Page size right now is set to 5, and that's actually how many rows or tr elements it's going to show within each section of the table. Sort, you saw up top, and you set to true, true, false. So that's why you can sort the first two by clicking on their names, and we couldn't sort the last one, which you'll see here in this demo. The filters we've set to true, false, and select, so that's basically we can filter by searching, and then we have no filter on the second column, and then we have filter by select. And the page number of pages is basically going to, you can change this number and it'll change the number of pages that are available in the pagination menus at the bottom and top of that HTML file. And then this filler text is just saying, hey, this is what we want to throw in to that first filter. And for a more in-depth explanation of what each of these do and additional options that you can throw in here, you can go back to this the datatable GitHub site. Okay, something I'm going to show on this as well is you can either use a table that's in the markup, the HTML, or you can simply add this data key. And in that data key, you can add an array, you can add an object, you can call from Ajax functions. Basically, if you got an array or an object or any type of database, you can load it in here and just point this key data to where you're looking. Okay, so let's take a look at this example. So here you have the search function available again. Remember, that was set to true. Now here, when we're clicking on year, it's sorting. And then remember, we had true, true, false. So on the third one, we can't actually sort anything. We had true, false, true for select. So we can search, and we can also search by select. One thing I changed in the second JavaScript as well was the page numbers. I changed from 5 to 2, so that's why we're only seeing 2 rows here. And then I also changed the pagination from 3 to 2. So now there's 2 pages, and you can bump that out to as many as you want. In summary, I went over the dependencies of what you need to get this up and running in your project. We took a look at the HTML, which showed you how to link into those JavaScript files, and just a simple basic table and how it's going to be used within the datatable function. I showed you an example of the rendered table using the HTML markup. We got into the datatable function itself and broke it down as to what keys did what. And I showed you an example of a modified table using an array.